Alrighty, we're going to finish out our notes on slope, and so we're going to find slope from a table. And we're going to review by first looking at slope from a graph, and we know that we find slope from a graph by finding 2 points. So if I look at these 2 points, here is a point, 0, -3, and then this point over here is 7, 0. And if I were to discount the slope from a graph, I'm going up 1, 2, 3, which is my rise. I rise 3. And then I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my slope is 3/7. But if I'm looking at it from a table, we use the change in y over change in x. And so my change in y, I go from here to here. How do I get from -3 to 0? Well, I add 3. My change in x, how do I get from 0 to 7? I add 7. And so my change in y divided by my change in x is 3 over 7. And that's what you do to find slope from a table. And so I have a couple examples to practice. If we're finding slope from a table, we find the change in y divided by the change in x. So my change in y, how do I get from 10 to 8? Well, I'm minus 2. From 8 to 3, I'm minus 5. And then my change in x, from -4 to 0, I add 4. From 0 to 10, I add 10. And then we look specifically at just this first one. So if I look here at just this change in y and just this change in x, okay, so my change in y is -2 over my change in x, which is 4, and that simplifies to -1/2. And then if I look specifically at just this 10 and the -5, and I say my change in y is -5 over my change in x, which is 10, that simplifies also to -1/2. So my slope for this table is -1/2. All right, let's do the same thing over here. I'm going to find my change in y, which means I go from here to here. 5 to 3 is -2. And then 3 to 1 is -2. And then I'm going to come on the other side and find my change in x. So from 2 to 9, I'm adding 7. From 9 to 16, I'm adding 7. And when everything's the same, then you're pretty much guaranteed that your slope is going to be the same. So my slope is change in y divided by change in x, which is -2 over 7. All right, if we're going to use the formula, which this formula is on your formula sheet, so if you look on the green paper in the front of your folder, you'll find it, and it's y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which means that you need to take 2 points. So find the slope, use the slope formula to determine the slope of a line that passes through the points 4, 9, and -8, -6. And so the first thing you need to do is label them. x1, y1, x2, y2. Well, why did I label that like that? In an ordered pair, x always comes first. And so x1, y1 is just the first point, and x2, y2 is the second point. And I could have labeled them the other way. I could have said x2, y2, x1, y1. The important part is that you keep the ones together and you keep the twos together. And so we're just going to plug into this formula. y2 is -6. See if that will focus there. -6 minus, because that's part of the problem, y1 is 9, divided by x2 is -8, minus x1, which is 4. Now, I really just want you to go to your calculator and get a calculator page and just type it in, and it's a fraction. So control divide, and we're going to type in the top, -6 minus 9 over -8 minus 4. And so my answer here is 5/4. Type the whole thing in all at once. Okay. Excuse me. Number 3. What is the slope of the line that passes through the points 5, -11, and -9, 17? And so we label them x1, y1, x2, y2. And we're just going to plug into this formula. y2 is 17 minus, because that's part of the formula, y1 is -11 divided by x2 is -9 minus x1, which is a +5. And again, we're just going to go to our calculator and we're going to type it in. And it's a fraction first, and then we're going to type in 17 minus -11. On the bottom, we have -9 minus 5. And the answer here is -2. So that's how you use the formula. Okay, on the back, write the equation that matches the graph. So this is a review of what we did the other day, and just finding points and being able to write your equation. And I'm not sure why it's not focusing a little bit better, but this one starts up here at 5, 0, 5. And that's my y-intercept. And then in order to find another point, it looks like 1, 2 over 1 up 2 is a good point. Now I can use that to calculate my slope. So this slope is, first of all, negative. So it's going down 1, 2, 3, and then right 1. So my slope is down 3, right 1, which is just -3. Which means my equation is y equals -3x plus 5, because 5 was my y-intercept. Okay? And then what I want to do at this point, though, is show you how to check all of your work in the calculator, or even check, or even just do some of it in the calculator. So if you're not sure how to calculate the slope from a table, then you can just use your calculator to do it. And so here's the steps on the calculator. And if you will, follow along on your paper as I show you what it looks like on the calculator. So first of all, it says new document. So we push on, and we push number 1 for new document. So I just like to push the numbers because it's a lot easier. And we're not saving anything. And then it says number 4 for list and spreadsheet. And you get this table. And it says at the very top, label your columns. So up here at A, we're going to label that as X. And we're going to scroll down by just pushing the down arrow or pushing enter. And then we're going to go over here and label this as Y. And so now I have my X and my Y. We don't put anything in the row that has the equal sign. And then we're going to put in 2 points. And let me see, I think these are the points that we used on the front of your paper. So 4, 9, and -8, -6. And so I'm using the points from the front of your paper. So if you're wondering where I got these, that's where I got it. Okay. And so when I go back to my calculator, the points have to go just like an order pair would. So 4 goes with 9, and -8 goes with -6. And so make sure you enter it in. Otherwise, even though you typed it, you have to enter it or it doesn't work. So now that I have my points entered in, it says we're going to press menu. And number 4 for statistics. And then number 1 for stat calculations. And we're doing a linear regression. And if you can't remember what that means, find the one that says y equals mx plus b, right? So mx plus b, which is number 3. And we're going to enter that in. And then it just wants you to say, hey, which column was your x? And so we labeled it as x, so we just type over that. And then you push tab, okay, which is this button here. And the y's we labeled as y. And then all you have to do is press enter. Or that's not going to work, so we're going to come down here and push OK. And you get a bunch of information over here. But what's really important is that this right here tells you that your m is 1.25 and your b is 4. And so that's your slope and that's your y-intercept, which is labeled on your paper. And how do I get this 1.25 to become a fraction? Because I like fractions for slope. And so we're going to press Control Dock number 1, and we're going to type in 1.25. And it says if you want to convert it to a fraction, press menu, number, which is 2, and then you approximate it to a fraction. So it's menu 2, right? Menu number fraction. And then you press enter, and you get 5/4, which is what we got whenever we calculated it using the slope formula. Now you can use this for a table, right? You can type your whole table into that list and figure it out. You can type just 2 points if you're only given 2 points. And you can also make up 2 points from your table, from your graph even. So I'm going to go and do the one at the very top. So if I start all the way over on new document, I'm not going to save anything, and I pick a list and spreadsheet. Remember, we're going to come up here and we're going to label these as X and Y. And then my points. So I have found 2 points on that table. And so if you're not sure what I'm talking about right this second, I'm looking, and I mean graph. I'm looking at this graph, which was the top of your paper, and I'm going to plug in that point, 0, 5, and this point, 1, 2. Those are the 2 points I use to find my equation. And so 0, 5, and then 1, 2. And so we're going to follow the same steps: menu, statistics, calculations, and linear regression, which is number 3. Again, we're replacing the x with x, we're replacing the y with y, and then we come down, and you can use the little keypad here to scroll down and push OK. And it tells you that your slope was -3 and your y-intercept was 5. That's this information here. And guess what? That's exactly what we had found whenever we did it by hand. So that is how you use the calculator, and if you're not understanding how to do it by hand, then use the calculator. Okay, that's why it's there.